So last week I talked a little bit about Unfinished Business, the movie starring Vince Vaughn, and I told you how weird it was that the actor that played it in the movie, one of the three principal characters, I guess, the main cast,
Mhm.
how he just suddenly died like 2 days after I was started watching the movie again, and I, how crazy that was. And I didn't exactly explain it too well, the movie, because I kind of just I tend to jump from point to point instead of sticking from to a straight line. If I ever made a rail system like for trains, it would be horrendous.
Just stop, start, in,
A turn, circle, to back up. Like, what the fuck is going on with this train system?
change different scales, back and forth between sizes of rail.
Fucking switch from trains to Ubers and. So anyway, so I went back and I watched the movie last night, and I took copious notes, basically from the beginning of the movie to the very end of the movie, in order. So I will explain the entire movie to the best of my ability, so that you have at least a cohesive story. And so let's begin. So the main characters are Vince Vaughn, of course. Well, the main characters are fuck. Here we go. I didn't write down their names at all. Let me go to Google. By the way, it's Google. It's not fucking Bing. It's not Yahoo. It's Google. Everyone's trying to say, like, I'm gonna check that search engine. What, Google? That's all you're going to. Don't you lie to me. All right. So the main characters are Daniel Dan Trunkman, Timothy McWinters, and Mike Pancake. So we start with Dan and his boss Chuck are arguing because they're planning on cutting Dan's salary by 5% next year, and he can't have that because he's got a wife, he's got kids. Like, that's 5% is a massive deduction in income, when especially if like you have a set budget with what you're making. So he decides to leave and start his own business. And before he leaves, he gets in front of everybody in the fucking the office, and he's like, he asks if anyone want to come with him to start a brand new business. You can start on the cutting room floor of a new venture. And of course, and then he's outside in the parking lot walking like a defeated man because no one came out with him. And so he's putting his stuff in his truck, and he notices that Timothy, Tim, and Mike are following behind him, and he gets all excited, thinking that they came with him after what he said, but they didn't. Well, Tim didn't. He just got fired. He got fired because there's a mandatory age limit at his company, and he's 67, so they just dumped him, which I think is like discrimination.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that.
So Dan's like, so you still want to work? And he's like, yeah, I'm only 67. So he hires Tim on the spot, and then he looks over to Mike, and he asks Mike, "Do you want to work for me?" He's like, Mike's like, "Yeah." It's like, so what did you do at Dynamic? I think that's what it's called, the company. And he's like, "I didn't work there. I was just having an interview." But he had brought his office belongings to show confidence. So Dan has an impromptu interview with him right then and there. He's like, "So what do you do?" Like, "I used to work at Foot Locker." It's like, "Reasons for quitting? I don't like feet." And so he's like, "All right, do you work hard?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "How hard?" He's the hardest. So he's just whatever random shit he can say. But I guess Dan wins him over, so he hires him on the spot. And then it jumps 2 years later, or no, 1 year later, and Dan's outside of Dunkin' Donuts having a conversation on the phone, and Tim and Mike are watching him through the window. He comes back in. He tells them that the deal that they've been working on for the last year has finally been set. It's going through. They just got to go to Portland, Maine, and have the handshake, the time honored handshake. Because in this business, because they're like mineral deposits or mineral sales business.
Mhm.
They decide that's the business. The handshake's like a time honored within their business. It's not written on paper, so I don't believe a handshake for nothing. But in their world, the handshake is the most important end game to the deal being done. You get the handshake, deal's done. So getting the handshake in this movie is like the MacGuffin, like the thing that they're trying to get, they cannot seem to get. And so they're gonna go to Portland, Maine. Which, like, when they said Portland to me, I just assumed Oregon. Anyone that hears Portland,
You automatically assume
yeah,
Oregon, yeah.
well, like, oh yeah, there's another Portland, Maine. Go figure. And Mike's kind of excited, or yeah, Mike's excited. He's like, "Are we gonna have like explorers?" and on this business trip, and he's like, explorers? Like, could you use that in a sentence? Like, yeah, Mike, Dan, and Tim are gonna go to Portland and have some explorers. Great, great way for you. And then Dan realizes that he's saying exploits, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna have any exploits. I'm just go in, get the handshake, and leave. But if you can have as many exploits as you want. And then Tim asks him, so is this, is there gonna be a fluffer on this deal? And Dan's like, no. And Mike's like, Mike's basically like our surrogate for this moment, like, because we don't know what a fluffer is. I mean, I know what a fluffer is because I'm a pervert. But in the context of their world, I don't know what a fluffer is.
Right.
And it turns out a fluffer for them is when a company wants to make a sweetheart deal with a friend, and to make it look legitimate, they would have another team or another company that they would pretend to do business with up until the very end of the deal, but just string them along the entire time. And Dan's like, nope, no fluffer. It's just us. We get the handshake. We're done. So there's no fluffer on this deal, allegedly. So let's see where we go. So Dan gets home, and he walks in, like he's gonna go tell his family that he's leaving for a couple days to do the deal. He knocks on his son's door, but then he goes right in without like stopping anything. Right, his son freaks out. He turns his computer monitor off, and Dad's like, "Oh, don't worry." He basically gives him a whole masturbation talk. He's like, "Everything, it's perfectly normal. These are the things you do, and there's no crime here. No one's being put on trial. Like, as a gentleman, you do your business, and then you put it away. You get back to business." And he's like, I used to do stuff all the time, like 3 or 4 times, but now I'm too tired from doing other stuff, so I can't do the stuff that I used to do like I used to do. And it's a very sweet, like trying to be like making some feel embarrassed,
Right.
and try to like an actual like a decent like or not decent. How do I put it? Like I bet you like if my parents or you know what I mean, like what the fuck, you know what I mean? Like like he's like a very mature father,
Right.
kind of like the dad in American Pie when he caught his son fucking an apple pie, and he's just like, well, we'll just tell your mom we ate it all. That was the most understanding. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
He's a very understanding father. He's like, when I was like, Dan's like, when I was a kid, Paul, my sister used to have these lingerie magazines that I would like, sneak away to use. Like nowadays, you kids can just, go online and watch a clown fucking alpaca. And I'm like, that was a weird choice for you to tell. And he's like, don't worry, Paul, it's no big deal. None of it's a big deal. You just do your business, but you got to do it in the bathroom because your door doesn't have a lock. And if your sister walks in on you, that's no good. So they hug it out. It's like, give me a hug, son. But I know what those hands have been doing. He leaves. Paul goes back to his computer and turns it on, and you realize he's not watching porn. He's watching his like Facebook page that people have just posted like the meanest shit. They just made him look like an elephant, they made him look like the kid from Willy Wonka that blew up into a balloon, turned blue. Or like having them like his face positioned over the body of a sumo wrestler, and then had like "Don't eat me, Paul" on the bottom. I'm like, God dang. So he moved. So after that, Dan goes into the kitchen, and him and his wife have the discussion of private school for Paul because he's very isolated in his school that he is right now, and he's getting picked on, and he can't like come out of his shell. So they're like, we need to talk about getting him into a new private school for next year. And Dan's like, all right, we'll talk about it on FaceTime it later today because he's got to catch his flight. So, and then she says like he's about to leave without eating, and she said you have to eat because men over 40 they can have fainting spells if they don't eat properly, and they'll lose muscle mass and all this other stuff. And he's just like, I gotta go. So then he talks to his daughter, and she asks him what's he taking to the flight on the trip, and all he does is take a book and some shoes. So all he does is read and run, which is funny because all I do is read and write. Go figure. And so she asked him to do his homework or her homework for him. It's like it's called "Who's Your Daddy." It's basically just the homework of what her father does for a living, or what he's like, or all that, right? And it causes a great way to add a voiceover that feels natural in the movie, which is like if I ever remember this little gimmick, I'm gonna keep it. So he starts talking in a voiceover about so who's your daddy, and he explains how he works as a swarf salesman that sells metal residue after construction of massive objects like the Golden Gate Bridge. He starts saying this, and he's like, "Oh, forget it. It's fucking boring." And then he just like he cuts it down. He says that he's worried that because Swerve's kind of on a downgrade this year, so he's probably this deal is really important, or his business is going under. Which COVID sure took care of a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, man,
I think it was something like 60% of all restaurants in New York City.
fuck,
Like, it was a lot. And the same thing goes for California.
it was tough.
I'm glad I wasn't in either one of those states at the time.
But this is 2015, no COVID in sight. But it's just companies go under, and it sucks.
Yeah.
So him. So I'm gonna call it the team from now on. If I have ever say a team, it's Dan, Tim, and Mike. So the team gets to the airport. They go up to the. I've never been in an airport, so they go to the place where they give the tickets to the people, the boarding section, I guess.
Mhm.
And Dan's excited because his name is next on the upgrade list, and he's never been upgraded. 31 flights he had that year, last year making the deal. Not once was he upgraded. So he gets upgraded, and he's all happy as hell. He like, you guys go off the plane. Like he tells them, he talks to him like peasants. Like make sure to go into the plane from the back. Like, we don't want to see you walking past the front of the first class. And so Dan's sitting in first class, just happy as hell. And you have all these military veterans go by, and a lot of people are giving up their first class seats for the military guys and going into coach or business class, I guess. And Dan's like, and like the line is stopped. So there's a soldier looking right dead at him, right? He's like trying to sip his orange juice. It's like I would give you my seat any other time, but I've never in my life been upgraded to first class. 12 years, like he's been working 12 years in this business, not once has he ever been upgraded to his first class. The soldier's like, it's okay, no problem. I mean, then Dan's like, oh, thank you for your service. So he goes to shake his hand. The guy pulls his hand out, and it's just a claw, like a metal.
Oh.
And Dan's like, and he just puts his first three fingers on the tip of the claw, right, and shakes it. He turns back, but then he realizes how terrible that is. He goes back and he gives him a full handshake, grabs the whole claw, shakes it like, I want you to have my seat. And he leaves to the back. Dan leaves, go to the back. Which at that point, I mean, you had to anyway.
Yeah.
So he get he's in the back with Mike and with the team, Mike and Tim. And he tells Mike not to say his name, his full name, because he's afraid that if Mike says his full name on the during the meeting, that you son of a bitch, during the no one ever texts me. I mean, anytime else, but whenever I'm driving or doing a podcast, here comes the fucking floodgates. He tells Mike not to, because he's afraid if Mike uses his full name, it distracts people from pertinent business stuff.
Mhm.
And he's like, "What's wrong with my name?" So he tells him to say his name. He's like, Mike Pancake. And then Tim just bursts out fucking laughing. He's like, oh, I just forget that his name is Mike Pancake. So on the shuttle bus from the plane to their, I guess, hotel or whatever, it's FaceTime. So FaceTime, Dan has to FaceTime his wife to talk about the private school. And when he starts FaceTiming, and his son Paul picks up, and his wife just runs in and says like, Paul just got arrested for shoplifting. And he's like, oh shit. So he finds out that his son was arrested because he was trying to steal, let's see what he's trying to steal, a 5-shade palette of show-stopping eyeshadows. Yeah, he was trying to put this eyeshadow on his eyes to go talk to the goth kids and try to connect.
That way he could get a click. Basically.
Yeah, but he ended up putting teal on his eyes instead of dark colors. So now he says that not only can he not fit in with anybody, he can't even fit in with the kids that can't fit in. So now Paul's like, well, damn. So his wife's like, he's like, oh crap, we got to talk about this private school. And she's like, it's gonna be $19,000 for this private school. And Dad says 19, and he like shuts his mouth, or like he keeps his mouth open and pretends he's the camera froze,
right,
or the FaceTime froze. And like, bear in mind, as you're watching the movie, you can clearly see him bobbing back and forth with the motion of the car. I don't know why she didn't notice that. I would have noticed. It's like, why are you still moving? You didn't freeze at all. And he has a second voiceover where he's talking about he's worried about his son because like he has, at his age, he sticks out physically from the other kids and they're picking on him, and he wants to help him, get through it, but he has to also worry about this deal because he really, really needs this deal. So he decides like with the private school and the deal, he's like his mind is really cluttered. So he's gonna go on a run. Unfortunately, his daughter packed his mom's or her mom's running gear, not his.
Oh.
So it's like a top, a tight, just tight, fucking like what are they like? What are they, leggings or
Yeah.
what are they called?
Tights.
Not there's like that like brand now,
Like the Lululemon.
like yoga, yeah, like the yoga stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, dang. So I can't run. So let me just get a junior wine from the junior mini bar, go to the balcony and just have a moment, just a Dan moment, just one Dan moment. And he breaks open the, by the way, like I want to stand out on a balcony and overlooking the ocean and just drink some wine. And he's about to take the drink, the sip of wine. And he looks over, and of all the people in the next balcony over, it had to be his ex-boss, Chuck. Chuck Portnoy. She's there. And she's like, hey, Dan. And Dan's like, hey, Chuck, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, you know me? She's about to go meet with the Benjaminsons. And the Benjaminsons is the company that Dan is there to see. So he's like, no. And so and then it comes to a weird scene of Mike stealing stuff from the hotel room. Like he steals all the little like soaps and shampoos. He steals a bathrobe. He steals a whole freaking hair dryer. Like, you know, like a full hair dryer. He just puts it in his luggage. Like, that's weird. So then Mike is getting his presentation ready, and the maid comes in, and she starts cleaning, and she says like, just watch me clean and touch yourself while I clean. He's like, huh? Like Dan freaks out, like what? And then it cuts to Tim talking to a maid, and he's like, I've never done this before. Like while you're cleaning, could you talk to me and maybe show me some titty? I like to see some titty. I'm not seeing enough titty from you. And you realize that he hired the sex maid for himself, but it ended up in Dan's room and not his.
Right.
And Timothy's like, Timmy's like, I wanna pretend to be someone else for a little bit. So could you call me Tony Stark and talk about my iron cock? I'm like, God dang, Tim. Like he wanted that business. And so Dan comes in. He's like, the sex maid that you hired, she's in my room. This is the actual maid. So Timothy's just like, you're doing a great job. Good job with the clean. It's so funny, awkward to me. Cause he's also like, she's like, I don't think she spoke English. So she's like, okay. And he's like, okay. She's like, okay. And he's like, okay. And they said okay back and forth like 5 times. It's like, okay. So then Dan gets mad and he starts yelling at both of them. It's like, let's stop drinking champagne, because Mike was just downing a full bottle of champagne in his room. And let's stop buying women. We gotta deal with this situation. And it is imperative that we close this deal. And then Mike's like, what's that E word? And he's like, Dan's like, I didn't say an E word. And then I look back, I rewound the scene back, and I'm like, and his whole little like monologue there. His whole little tirade, not one of his words started with an E. It's imperative. It was like imperative. It's like imperative. So then Dan goes on a run to clear his head, and like Tim's like, the meeting's in an hour. He's like, I have to go. I have to clear my mind. So he wears his wife's clothes and he runs outside. And there's a weird thing that I cannot get over, because I wish there was commentary on this movie. But there's not. There's hardly any special features or bonus. I'm like, man, that sucks. There's this moment where he's running in Portland, Maine, and it's cold as fuck. But he's like, he's like, just heated by the running, I guess.
Right.
And he gets to a crosswalk where you got to press the button for like the walking. And this little he stands up against the pole, and this little Asian woman comes in and just fucking boom. Hits that shit hard as fuck. The button, he's like, oh, fuck. Scared the shit out of him, right? And so he goes back to watch it. By the way, from what I hear, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently real runners, when they stop at like a crosswalk and stuff, they kind of like bend down and like put their hands on their like knees to catch their breath. and like fake runners will do like the stop jogging motion. I don't know if that's true or not. I heard that somewhere. Like like when runners like they'll jog in place while they're waiting for the light to turn. Apparently, the real joggers they stop completely and like to catch their breath. I don't know. It's funny. That's something I learned, and I saw Dan do the real one, and the other chick do like the fake jogger.
Yeah, I think it's more of like if you're anxious or not, though. But I know that there's people that do run where it's like they have so much fucking energy.
So anyway, he's doing he's the exhausted resting pose, and this guy comes in. He's about to press the button again, and Dan smacks the shit out of his hand. He's like, ah. He said, "No, don't press the button. It's already done." And I never understood what the fuck that was for. That little scene, it was so weird to me. It's still weird to me to this day. We saw that movie like 8 years ago.
Yeah,
and I keep seeing it. I'm like, why does he stop the guy from pressing the button? I don't understand.
it's like it's already been pressed.
I guess so, but like there was no reason. It was weird to me. So Dan ends up going to the meeting place, still wearing his fucking wife's clothes. He meets his contact for the meeting, like the guy that he's been building the meeting, the deal with all this year, Bill Williamson, and he meets Chuck there as well, who's talking to Bill, and he meets Bill's boss Jim. If you need to know what he looks like, Jim is basically a Cyclops from X-Men. It's the actor. And Bill is freaking not he's the heavy set one from Shaun of the Dead. If you didn't know what they look like.
Yeah.
And so Chuck goes into this weird thing where she keeps looking at Dan's like crotch, because like as tight as those fucking shorts are, right? Those pants, she cannot see his dick or balls, and it's like highly alarming to her. It's like, you think I can see your dick or balls, but I can't. It's weird. He's like, don't be staring at my dick. So they go up, and at this point, you clearly realize that Jim, Bill's boss, and Chuck, Dan's ex-boss, are really good friends. Like they probably fucked, is what it looks like. That's what they're trying to imply here. I wish there was commentary so I could be sure. But so Dan's kind of freaked out now, because now Jim has reopened the deal back up to first term rates. So they gotta do their entire presentation over again that they've been working on for the last year, and restart the entire deal process now that Chuck's their new competitor. And like Dan's like, this is weird. So they're up in the office with the Ben Jameson team. You got Jim and Bill and so another guy, and you got the team. And Dan's like going through his presentation with like on the TV. He's like using like the PowerPoint files and whatnot. And then like now if you look closely, and boom, he fucking passes out. He faints. The fainting spell that his wife from earlier.
Yeah.
He just eats. He just drops it. And then like Tim and Mike come and help him up, right? And like Dan's like, well, what was the last thing I said? And Mike's like, fuck, because he's like, when he hit there, he's like, fuck. Which it literally wasn't the language. Like that's all we wanted him to say. Like he wanted like on the presentation when Mike's being literal. So you said fuck right before you hit the fucking floor. So he has Mike take over the presentation process, the event or whatever. What's it called? The presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I am Mike Pancakes, and it fucking ruined the meeting. It's like, what's your last name? The Pancake? Like, yeah, it's Greek. Like the breakfast? So it completely ruined the meeting. Which is funny, because he said that his name is Greek, right? And when Jim and Dan are talking later after the meeting, Jim tells them that they had to reopen the deal process over again with another company, because the Swarf business had bottomed out in Greece. So that's kind of weird that they use Greece, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I guess the writer was just he had Greek on his mind when he wrote both scenes. So now they have to go to basically now. What happened here? Let me reorganize myself. So now the team has to go to Berlin and present to the group called Gelger, which is the parent company of Ben Jameson. It's Ben Jameson's parent company. Like
how Johnson & Johnson owns a whole bunch of companies.
Right, and Gelger owns Ben Jameson. So if they can get good with Gelger, Ben Jameson got no choice, and he can beat Chuck in the deal. So they get to Berlin, And no, they don't get to Berlin. They go to this pier in Portland, which I don't know if it's a restaurant. Like they're just sitting out there on this pier. Like there's boats everywhere. And they're on a table. There's a little one of those little red candles in the center of the table, which is like the universal sign of a restaurant, a diner or
Yeah.
dinner, a restaurant, right? And I'm thinking like, there's nobody out there. It's one table on one pier. There's a freaking Pepsi machine in the corner, like on the edge of the like back on like the mainland. And like I don't understand the scene. I like it. Like I really love the scene because I love unique little places that are like out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why are they sitting out on the pier on a table? There's no food on their table.
Right.
It's cold as fuck because you can see their breath. So I'm like, are they eating dinner out here? Maybe it's one of those restaurants that like in the summer it's really popular,
Right.
but because it's fucking balls cold, no one's gonna get out. But they're like, but maybe the food's like cheaper, but there was no food there, so I don't understand the scene. They're just sitting there. And Tim's talking about like he really wants this deal to go through because he wants to divorce his wife, who's excessively cruel, has been the only woman he's ever slept with, and he just wants to get some fucking on. Is basically what he said. Like he says it a lot sweeter than that, but he just wants to get his fuck on.
Right.
He wants to fuck somebody wheelbarrow position, but he can't do it with his wife because his wife's the size of a vending machine. It would break his back to hold both her legs up. Is what I interpreted. He was saying, like she looks like that, the Pepsi machine over there.
Like that that person that's on all these shows now where they call it Gorlock.
Oh, that one woman.
Yeah.
That's not her actual name, is it? Or is that a mean? Is that what they
call her?
Oh, that's
Or
not
it.
That's not very nice.
Gorlock the Destroyer.
So yeah, Tim needs this deal to go through, and Mike and Dan have a weird exchange about like your wife's square because Mike asked Tim if his wife's square, and Mike's like rectangular, yes, and he's like but the Pepsi machine's square, and then Dan's like that symbol right here, like he does like you can tell he's doing a rectangle. Yeah, that's square. And Mike's like, by the way, the actor that plays Mike, Dave Franco, if you like, there's like a 5 minutes interview thing in the bonus features. Well, there's that, and like those stock images of office people like just standing looking happy.
Yeah.
They have that on the DVD as well, but it's just Mike and Dan superimposed onto a bunch of fucking stills of business people, like Dan going like this at a presentation, Mike smiling with his group of people in the office, weird as fuck. But there's like a 5 minute like little like behind the scenes of like making the movie, and like you can tell it's two different people. The actor's a different person than the character he played, Mike, which is like pretty much the essence of acting.
Right.
Like when you can see the person as one way, and then when you see him in a different way, it's him acting. Because like Mike has this goofy thing where like he tends to blink when he's nervous with just one eye instead of both. He just blinks with his left eye. And I noticed that because I watched the movie like 10 times now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's like an actor choice right there. I'm like, that's fucking good. Like his whole speech pattern is different than Dave's is when he's doing the interview. It's amazing. But like there's those little idiosyncrasies you notice when you watch a movie 107 times.
Start noticing every little thing. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. So so they decide to go to Berlin to present to Ben Jamison's parent company.
Mhm.
And yeah, I even wrote Pier Restaurant in my notes. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck kind of restaurant it was, but we got to go there one day. And so Dan does his third voiceover because he really like on the plane, he does his third voiceover. And he says like, now I know why my Paul didn't want me to come in his room on his computer. It wasn't because of he was doing stuff. It was because he was going through his Facebook and seeing all the mean comments, and like Dan's going through his son's Facebook and all the mean stuff people put on there. And so now he's really worried about his son. And Mike meets a woman on the plane. She's telling him like, by the way, the same thing about now that I'm noticing like the acting from the movie, she almost comes off as condescending. Because he says like, so donkey means thank you. And she's like, like, but she's not. It's not meant to be condescending because she likes him, right?
Yeah.
But if you see the scene, at first though, she's being real. Like when she does, like almost does like she does an eye roll without rolling her eyes.
Right.
Like you'd have to see it, but I'm like, she looks like she's being an asshole to him. It's like that's right. Donkey means thank you. Like that's the way I interpret it. When she tilts her head up and comes back down, it looks like she's being condescending. They probably should have talked to her about that in the scene because that looks to me. If I was a director, that was condescending as fuck the way you did that. I'm gonna need you to change that head motion. Like it was just like
Huh.
exactly, that's exactly what she did. I'm like, that was not what she meant to do for the character in the scene.
Right.
So the team gets to Berlin. Where am I? I fucking lost my place. Oh yeah, so the team gets there. They rent a car, and for whatever reason, they made the. By the way, Mike's character is autistic in this movie, is what I'm guessing. So he's not like he's really good with numbers and people, but he also has like these deficiencies, like social deficiencies, and
Right.
like stuff like that. So I don't know why they let Mike order the GPS in this computer in this car because he decided to order it in German. And like you know his rationale was like, well, because we're in Germany and we need to have the German so that it would know all the German streets and German names. And then Dad's like, if it was in English, it would still have the streets names, but they'd still be in English. I'm like, what the fuck? He was like, he lost, like, I don't know, like the computer kept saying Fugerschlagen. Like, what the fuck does that even mean, Mike? Fugerschlagen. Dan was losing his fucking shit. Like, see, pancake, what the fuck does that even mean? I love their like you can tell when people are close, especially like people that aren't family, right?
Right.
Like when they can argue with each other and they go back to being normal. That's like true like uh level of like closeness.
Mhm.
Like you could like you couldn't be that with like a regular coworker, right?
No.
But they, Mike Dan just cussing Mike out, and then like sorry, it's like sorry Dan. So they get on the autobahn and they get on the wrong side. Like not only on the wrong side, but they go up a ramp, and the ramp's oncoming traffic. So everyone's going by, and they're cussing them out. And Dan's like, "Thank you. I don't know what you said, but I'm sure it wasn't helpful. Like, thank you. I'm a guest in your land, but thank you." And this little kid flips him off. It was a funny little bit. So they need to go to, so they need to go to Hamburg in 2 hours and back. Tim's like, "Why?" And Dan's like, "Because he needs to meet this woman named Helen Hartman,
Hmm.
who if she can drop her something, this is where I don't know anything about this business. If she drops something in her like deal with him, he can change his deal to be able to beat Chuck. Like he can take his percentage down to 17% if she like drops her like her fees on like her upfront fees, and then she'll pay him back on the backside like double her like processing fees or something.
Mhm.
Like it sounds like if you were like in the business, you probably get a hard on. But I was like, I don't know what the fuck she's talking about, but I'm still enjoying the whole situation because like it's legit. Like it feels legitimate. So they call up the offices of Helen, and they find out that she's taking a personal day. And Dan's like, "Could you, by any chance, tell me where she is?" Like, I doubt, I don't know why no one would ever tell you, or I guess they would be if, depending on who you are.
Right.
But she tells him that she's went to it's called a spritz, right? But it's fucking spelled SHVITZ in the uh not the commentary, the what's the words at the bottom? I forgot what to call the words.
Caption.
The caption, right? It's spelled CHVITC, but they say spritz. That's how they say spritz in Germany, I guess.
Hmm.
It's like a spa place.
Yeah.
And so the Dan wants the lady to go in there and bring Helen out, but she's like, "Don't worry, it's a unisex spritz. Go all right on in." So in they go, and freaking Mike, being like new to like he's never been out of town, he's still a virgin, he's never like had any exploits like he wants to have. He's excited, and this woman walks out. She's coming out of the spa as they're coming in, and Mike's like, "Boobies, big boobies, here they come, they're right there. Look at the boobies." Like, he almost fucking grabs them, by the way. And then he like stops himself. It's like, "Big boobies." And so Dan's like, "All right, you guys wait here. Let me go meet with Helen. Let me go find her." And of course, Mike and Tim want to come with him. Like, Tim's fucking starving for sex. Mike also. They need to get laid, apparently. They want to go because there's naked women everywhere. And Dan's like, "No, she's gonna be freaked out if 2, 3 grown men in full suits just gang up on her in one like a spa area. So he's like, I'll go by myself. I'll talk to her. I'll be right back. And then Tim's like, we understand. And then they leave. And I don't know if this was a improv moment from the actor Dave, or if it was part of the movie. But he looks over. He's like, butt cracks, 2 butt cracks. Like he drags Mike over or Tim over to see these two women behind this glass, and their like asses are pressed up against the glass, and he's all excited. Every time I see that scene, I can't. He's like 2 butt cracks. I wish that was my my ringtone. 2 butt cracks. So he gets there. He talks to Helen. He tells her all the spiel that he's talking about, and she's like she agrees to his new terms, but she calls him a liar, and he's like, what? No, she doesn't agree at first. She calls him a liar when he propositions this new deal, and he's like, what? My numbers are solid, and she's not worried about the numbers. She calls him a liar because like, what kind of a prudish American comes into an open spa in full fucking uniform, right? And he's like, what? I love Europe. And so Dan gets butt ass naked in the to prove to her that he's not some prudish American.
Yeah.
And then so the deal is settled. But then Tim and Mike come in to check on him. Like, we just came in to check on you, make sure you're okay. And of course, Dan's butt ass naked, and Mike's like, I can see you, boss sack. And for whatever reason, Mike gets a boner. And Helen's like, looks like we got ourselves an excited pilgrim. And Mike's like, oh, I'm sorry. And he puts his tie over his boner. Like, our boners not allowed? Such a weird scene. So that deal is set. Boom. They're in the car going back to Berlin. They had 2 hours to get to Hamburg. They got to come back. And Mike's wife calls him, and she starts having sex talk with him, but it's over the speakerphone. So Dan's like, you need to stop. Tim and Mike are here. Because she was saying like she's got her phone in her left hand. She's got her right hand going down her belly, doing little circles on her, And he's like, you're on speakerphone. You're on speakerphone. And she says hello to Tim and Mike. They hang up, and then Mike's like, I like to make circles too, on my bike. And then that's it. Then for whatever reason, there's a reindeer in the middle of the road, and they end up. Dan's going 100 miles an hour. He can't stop. The deer's like right there, so he swerves because Mike says like, just go right at it. It'll dart. The reindeer does not give a fuck. He stands dead on in front of that car. So Dan swerves. He hits like the little metal like partition that separates like the road from like the outside ground and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then, tips his car over. They flip over backwards, and they end up in the cornfield. So they total their fucking rental car, and they got to walk back to Berlin. It was a random scene. It didn't really do much for the scene at all.
Yeah.
Other than have Dan yell at Mike again. Like, Dan, have you seen a lot of reindeer in St. Louis running to and fro? Mike's like, no. I just imagine what I would do if I was a reindeer man. And so they get up to the Gelger's office to do the meeting. And Mike asks Tim again, why is it called a wheelbarrow? It's like, could you hold the legs up like a wheelbarrow? Like, the handles of a wheelbarrow. Like, he asked about the wheelbarrow a lot. Right before the meeting, his wife, Dan's wife calls and says, can you talk to your daughter? There was a bullying incident in school. Dan talks to his daughter, says, like, no one likes a bully. Their parents are probably assholes, this and that. And, you'll be a good kid, all this and that. And they hang up. And as they're waiting for the meeting to start, he checks because there's a video of the bullying incident. He looks on it, and it's not someone bullying his daughter. It's his daughter beating the shit out of some little Indian kid. Is what he said in the video. So it turns out she was the bully. So he's like, he's like, he looks at Tim like, we gotta get this fucking deal. We gotta get home. Like, you gotta get the fuck out of here. Like, his whole family life's falling apart. It's like, I gotta get home. So the receptionist meets him at the outside the offices and tells him that their meeting has been pushed to Friday at 11:30, which is like 2 days later or some shit. They're like, what? So now their whole deal is ruined. So then now they gotta stay in Berlin like another 2 days or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mike is looking for rooms for them. They're in the park, just sitting and contemplating life, I guess. And Mike's looking for rooms, but the problem is Berlin is packed. Right, it's October. It is packed. Like they did a great job of making it like seem like constant stuff happening to him.
Because like the Oktoberfest stuff.
Oktoberfest, the G8, Folsom Europe, and the Berlin Marathon are happening that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like everything all at once.
Folsom Europe by itself had 25,000 people come in out of town. By the way, they showed some weird videos on that like behind the scenes stuff for Folsom Europe. Oof. Like a man wearing a dog mask over his face and having a chain and someone else walking him around.
Ah,
I'm like, huh. It's a huge gay festival.
I kind of put two and two together as soon as you said the dog mask.
So Dan or Mike finds a room for Dan in his price range,
Mhm.
which is higher than theirs because he's the boss. And then he finds a room for him and Mike, or Mike and Tim at a hostel. And a hostel's like for teenager or fucking
College kids.
yeah. Tim's like 67 years old. Yeah, because the lady tells him he's too old for a room, so he's like, "Where can I stay?" She can sleep in the hallway. You can sleep in the stairway. You can sleep in the business center. He's like, "Business center it is." And on the bus ride to because there's a car's gone on the bus ride to their like respective hotel rooms. Mike asks again, "So how is it a wheelbarrow?" And Dan's fucking pissed. Like, just hold their fucking legs up like a wheelbarrow. Fuck, man. He always like I don't know why I like when he yells at Mike. He loses his temper so quick. Cause it's kind of like a third son at this point.
Yeah.
Like he's like, "God damn you, will you just stop being
He will not get through as the kid.
right?" They're going to different hotels, so they split ways down the street, and Mike leaves, and Tim confronts Dan, and they're like, "Dan, don't you see what's going on? We're the fluffer, like we you know what I mean? Like he pretty much lays it out that they're the fluffer because it seems like they're like, and you can tell,
Getting strung along, yeah.
yeah, like they're getting strung along. Like they were told to come to Portland, Oregon to do the handshake. They didn't get the handshake. They were told they didn't have to come to Berlin. Dan insisted on coming to Berlin and meeting Gelger. And when they tried to meet Gelger, they pushed the meeting up like 2 days. Like, "Where's the fluffer, Dan?" And then he really lays it on him. He tells him like two companies that owed him money, both went bankrupt. So I guess Tim kind of does like the finances. The two companies that owed him money went bankrupt, so they didn't have any income June and July. Now we're in October. So that means they've been coasting on money from, I guess, earlier jobs and like whatever they could get August, September. So they are flat broke. And like if this deal does not get through, the company's gonna go under. Like Dan had no idea, like because he didn't. Tim didn't tell Dan.
Right.
I'm sorry, I should have told you, but I thought this deal would go through. Like Tim was counting on this deal 100%. And then he gets into like this little like really like sad moment where he's like Dan, I need this deal to go through because I just want to have a little joy in my life, you know? Like he just wants to he's dealt with his wife, this battle axe of a woman apparently, and he's like he just wants to have a little joy in his life, while he still can.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to I just want 50 Shades of Grey. Hell, I'd sell it for 1 shade of gray. And by the way, you should reimburse me on that sex maid because you got all the good stuff. Like Tim wants Dan to reimburse him on the sex maid because they went to Dan. Dan's like, that's not gonna happen. It was just a little funny bit. So Dan goes to his hotel right at the Dawdlin Annex, and he goes in and he talks. He calls Paul on the on FaceTime. And he tells him about the stuff that, him getting bullied and stuff and how, you shouldn't talk to yourself the way people talk about you.
Right.
And all this and that. And his son's gets distracted because there's a bunch of people behind his dad. So Dan turns around and there's just a whole group of people. And Dan's like, what the fuck is going on? Like they're just looking out his window. And he goes up to the receptionist to talk to the guy. And he's like, what? Like you find out that he's just signed up, which I don't understand. He's basically signed up to be in this museum, in this room, an installation room, but he's the one paying them to be there. And he's basically now art in there. He's a display now. He's called American Businessman 42. And I'm thinking wait, why does he have to pay you to be there? wouldn't you guys have to pay him, or in fact, it not even be paid at all and just be like free room and board? Because
Like a quid pro quo.
yeah,
You get the free room and they get to stare at you.
yeah, and they get to stare at you. But for whatever reason, he ends up paying for the room, and the guy's like, "You are art." And he's like, "I'm not." And I don't know why I fell in love with the receptionist, because he like this guy just embodied like the artsy museum like clerk or whatever, right? And he's like, "Well, who's to say what's art or what's not art?" He's like, "My life isn't art. Like, people shouldn't watch." It's like, people, what did he say? He said like it's up to them to watch whatever they want. He's like, it's up to them to choose what they watch. And like the way like he carries himself, so like not refined, or I guess kind of refined, like just like with a
Like one of those kind of like modern artist.
yeah, just like so calm and collected.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're art." And like the one he said, like, "Well, who can say?" After Dan says, like, "I'm not art." Like, "Well, who can say?" Like he raises one of his eyebrows up. And it's just, I don't know why. Like, I wish I could, like, that character had been in the movie more. So Mike ends up. So I guess Dan stays at he has to see. He does stay at the hotel. There's nowhere else, no other place. All of fucking Berlin is fucking packed. So he's now American businessman 42, and he's also paying for his room for some fucking reason.
Yeah.
And so Mike goes out with the girl that he met on the plane. They're hanging out. They're talking. They're walking the streets of Berlin. They go back to somebody's. I don't know if it's her place or maybe she's there on vacation, or whoever's place it is. And they're doing the wheelbarrow position, but they're doing it with Mike's. You know how Mike is. He ends up the one to be in the wheelbarrow and not her. So she's the one holding him up by his legs. And he's like, "I don't really like this position at all. My balls really hurt." And like he's like, does it feel good for you? She's like, "No, not in the slightest." So the wheelbarrow position is completely fucking ruined on that try. So Dan has another voiceover. He's running in the park again.
With his wife's.
He actually found some clothes. I guess he bought some. And he's running with these new clothes in the park. He's talking about how he's worried about, like, not only am I worried about Paul, but I'm worried about you, because you beat the shit out of a little Asian kid. So now he's worried about his daughter. He's worried about his son. He's worried about being the fluffer in this deal, because now he can feel that he is. And so he's like, forget this damn this run. He goes back to his hotel room and starts looking for Bill Wemsley, the man that he built the deal with for the last year, Jim's, I guess, underling. And so Mike puts Bill's name into Instagram, and he finds him, and he says, like, we can look when he updates something, we can look for him. And he does update something, and he looks like he's in Folsom, Europe. So then they hit every gay bar in Berlin looking for Bill Wemsley. And they have no luck at all. They're like, it's a quick montage, like, "Hey, Bill Wemsley, you seen him?" Like, everyone's like, and then Mike's like talking to a man. He's like, "Oh, you never been to a gay bar?" "No, I've never. This is my first time. This place is just so nice." The guy's like, are you gay?" He's like, "No, but you guys seem to be having a lot of fun." Like, Mike's always down for whatever, apparently. So they're having no luck. It's been raining. Dan's freshening up in one of these bathrooms, and he turns around, and so this dick comes through a glory hole, just like a full fucking cock. I'll give him respect that it wasn't just titties and ass you saw from women. You see a lot of dicks here. Let me have a quick sip of Mango Madness. So this dick comes out, and he's like, the Dan's like, "What the fuck?" And the guy starts having a conversation with him about asking about the rain, asking about like, and Mike's like, and Dan's like trying to be as normal as possible, but it's impossible when you're having a conversation with a penis. And then another dick comes out of the fucking wall. So now there's two dicks he's talking to. And one of them is like, "Why don't you say just green eggs and ham it?" Like, you remember the green eggs and ham book where like you just try it or whatever?
Yeah.
And he's like, Dan's like, "Yeah, I loved the book as a kid. I don't remember the part of sucking cocks in the book." So then Mike comes in and to look for Dan, and he sees like, whoa, like he just sees dicks just hanging from a wall. And one of them says hi, and the other one says hi, and something about like a handshake, right? And I think Dan says something, and Mike takes it literally, because he goes up to shake one of the dicks, like a handshake. And then Mike grabs it and just shakes it, and then you realize he pulls away. And he's like, got kind of hard in my hand a little. It's a weird sequence. So then Dan, he has his ass up against the wall, I guess, to protect his asshole. Is his thinking, and he gets someone. But he put it over a hole. So all of a sudden, a dick just boom hits him in the ass, and it pushes him out off the wall. And this fucking massive ass dick comes out. By the way, the dick for the actor is too dark to be his. I'm dead. Like I know they had like a stunt dick, right? Not the actor's actual dick, but they should have picked a color equivalent dick, because his dick was black and this is a white man. Is what I'm trying to tell you here. Like that was not his dick. And the dick, it turns out that bumped into Dan. It is Bill Wimsley's penis. He's like, Bill Wimsley? And Bill's like, yeah, who's this? Like, it's Dan from Apex Selects. It's like, hey, Dan. that like nervous, like that embarrassed, like, hey, Dan. And like, well, I've been looking everywhere for you, Bill. I got these new numbers here I want you to look at. And Bill does this great thing, like where he's like, as you can see, this wasn't the thing I was looking to do tonight. Like he was like you have to watch it because I can't explain it well, but he does like a pause on and like you can tell within the pause that coming here to talk about numbers from his job is not what he came here to do. He came here to get his dick sucked was his true plan. So he's like, what's your margin percentage? And he's like, 17%. Like, well, now that does have he fucking fixes his glasses. Now that does have my attention. So let me sort myself out and I'll meet you out back. Pretty much like, let me put my dick away and I'll meet you out back. You know, he reminds me of in this movie? Reminds me of Ron Jeremy.
Oh, really?
Minus the sexual assault that he went to jail. Ron Jeremy, you're an evil man. Anyway, moving on. So they find Bill, and Dan shows him the numbers, and Bill's just like, wow, these are amazing numbers. Like completely destroys Chuck's numbers from her company. And so they decide to celebrate. Like, yes, the numbers work. Let's celebrate. So they have a huge montage, like a huge montage, which is like my favorite part of the movie. Like Tim takes ecstasy. Like he throws a dart. He's supposed to throw a dart at the apple on Mike's head, but he throws it right at his chest.
Oh.
And then Mike doesn't even feel it. And he's like, just throw it. It's the waiting. That's the worst part. It's fucking hilarious. They end up making friends with these sailors. Then they end up having a fist fight with the sailors. Then they go back to being friends with the sailors. Mike has a tequila slaps with this Asian businessman. So they take a shot of tequila and they slap the other guy. And it's all going crazy. So then after the party montage, Dan and Bill, they're having a heart to heart. They're going back down. They're walking down the street. I guess Dan's walking Bill to his hotel room, and they're having like a little little heart to heart about the Dan. The thing is I'm not the type of guy that just wants to stick his dick into a hole. Like it's the only way. But it's like the only way you can get any like action nowadays.
Yeah.
Because he's a middle-aged pear-shaped man, and they start talking about like the regrets of like the recent couple of years or whatever, and how Dan's like he was training for the St. Louis Marathon, and he had got up to 15 miles last year to run it, but then because of the deal that he had to keep going like 31 trips to make the deal with Bill, like he just ended up not doing the marathon. And then like Bill's like, yeah, like with this deal, all I've been doing because of work, all I've been doing is just packing food on. Like I used to play rugby. I used to be all kinds of ripped. I love that he's like, I used to be all kinds of ripped. I love that line the way he delivers it. And like Dad's like, well, Bill, don't worry, you got a big dick. He's like, yeah, but I can't even suck that anymore. So it turns out he can suck his own dick back in the day. So yeah, kind of like Ron Jeremy. So the next day, freaking Dan's card declines at the hotel, at the museum. So they kick him out. So you can't kick me out. I'm art. He's like, you leaving will be art as well. They fucking throw him out on his ass. And what happened after that? Let's see. So the team gets there. Mike, Tim, and Dan, and instead of meeting with Gelger, they meet with Jim by himself. No Bill there. No new numbers. No nothing. Jim's just gonna listen to their presentation. That's it. And they look completely defeated because they know damn well just talking to Jim was not gonna work. So they present to Jim, and then later, when Dan's this is the moment they know there's a fluffer when they just meet with Bill by himself, or no, with Jim by himself.
Right.
So Mike gets a call. I don't know why I put Mike. Dan gets a call from from Jim a little bit later and tells him that they're gonna go with Chuck's team or Chuck's company instead of Mike's or instead of Dan's. And Dan's like, "Fuck." So Dan finds some eyeshadow, some teal eyeshadow, puts on his eyes, and he calls Paul on the FaceTime. I keep forgetting about FaceTime. And he talks to him about well, first he talks to his daughter and says like, "You're a kid and you don't have to worry about Paul," because the reason she beat up that other kid was because they were making fun of Paul, calling him double stuffed Oreo, which are like nasty Oreos, by the way. Double stuffed Oreos. And he's like, "Don't worry about Paul. That's my job. Your job is just to be a kid. Just enjoy being a kid." And oh, by the way earlier in the movie, I forgot I don't know where I missed it, but his wife texted him. It was during the hotel thing when they were trying to get a hotel. She texted him like, "We need to either we pull the trigger on the private school or no," and he's like, "Just do it." But like now they don't have the money,
Yeah.
but they had done it earlier, so he's like, "Fuck." So then he talks to Paul, and Paul's like, "Oh, you're wearing eyeliner." He's like, "Yeah, we gotta be teal tough." And he tells him like, he basically tells him like, "Look, you're gonna go to school. You're gonna go to a new school next year, but it's not really gonna change anything. Like you just have to be tough. You need to, roll with. You need to, just like he gives him a good speech about just like you have to accept yourself and not worry about what people say or what people do, and just enjoy your life, basically.
Right.
Like and I'm always here when you need to talk to me. Like you can tell me anything, and I'll never tell it. And it's just in complete confidence. No one will ever know but me.
Right.
I probably like the best father bond or best father son like interactions I've ever seen. Like Dan, like Vince Vaughn, no less. Like always comes off as goofy and not serious.
Mm-hmm.
He just really knocked it out of the park in this movie to me. And then Paul's like, "Thanks, Dad." And then he's like, "So did you get the handshake?" And then Dan's like, "Ah." He does the fake freeze, like, "Ah." So Dan froze again. So he still can't fucking. There is a moment in the movie earlier where he says like, "And your dad freezes." Like when he's doing like the voiceover for the daddy assignment, that your dad freezes sometimes when all of those problems come crashing down all at once. He tends to freeze on FaceTime, so he doesn't have to deal with them right away. I don't know why this movie didn't do better than it did. It is such a it's parts raunchy, parts sentimental. Such a perfect combination. Maybe because it was R-rated is why.
It could be.
If it was PG-13, it should have hit almost $1 billion. So now with the two not getting through, now Dan has to fire Tim. He's gonna have to fire Mike. He's gonna have to he just have to admit defeat. He ends up going out to drink with like these people that know him as American. Like now in Berlin, he's really famous as American Businessman 42. So these fans of him, they invite him to go out drinking. So he gets fucking shit faced, and he ends up sleeping on the street, like just in a parking bench, like a bench in the middle of nowhere. And Mike ends up beating another girl, and he successfully does the wheel. He gets laid twice in this movie, and he ends up doing the wheelbarrow with this girl the right way. He's like, "It's so obvious now. This was the way." So Dan's wandering the street. He's still doing the voiceover for his daughter, her little assignment, and he realizes like, you know what? That's enough. Like no more. He decides that he walks into the Berlin Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And just as it starts, the Berlin Marathon's going through, and he just says fuck it. He's in his business suit, and he just starts running with the Berlin the joggers, the runners, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And like everyone's excited, like for whatever reason, the news people are like American Businessman 42. Like there's like news anchors like commenting on him being in the race, and like you don't know what she's saying because it's in German, but she's an American Businessman 42 within the little phrase. So he runs the whole fucking marathon. I don't know how many miles it is, but it just waking up off the fucking bench and just running a marathon does not seem easy to me. But he looks fucking ragged when he's like, and he did it. So he does the voiceover. He says like, well, now we're gonna do. I'm gonna get the team together, and we're gonna get to Gelger, and we're gonna seal this deal. And I'm getting that goddamn handshake. So for whatever reason, I guess because he had hit rock bottom, he just said, "Fuck it, let me just run the Berlin Marathon." And that gave him the motivation to meet with Gelger. So he calls Bill up and says like, "Bill, get me in there with your the entire head of all of Gelger, pretty much the boss of bosses here." And Bill's like, "I can't do that. I can't go over Jim's head." Like, "Bill, yes, you can. Get me in there to meet with Gelger." And he's like, "Dan, I can't. Like, yes, you got a big dick. You better get me in there." So they get to the offices, right? But now there's a fucking problem. There is a huge protest outside the building. They're protesting the G8, which I still don't know what that is. I probably have to look it up.
It's super rich countries. The U.S. is part of it.
I don't know why they're okay. They're protesting the G8. Maybe some of their policies they didn't like. Who knows?
Oh boy.
And so Tim and Mike are like, "How are we gonna get in there?" And it's like, "We'll figure out a way." So somebody hops the fence that they created around the building. They rip it open, and then they get through this little hole, and then you see the protesters run on one side, then you see Dan, Tim, and Mike run on the other side. The police are shooting tear gas into the crowd. Dan gets up to the building and he tells the guy like, "Hey, we're not part of this protest here. We're actually here to meet a very important person. Can we come in?" The guy yells at him in German, pushes him away. Dad's like, "Hey, everything's cool. I just need to go in. I'm not part of this group." And then the guy pushes him again. So Dan gets mad like, "Don't you fucking touch me!" And then Tim gets even madder and grabs a fucking trash can and throws it at the cop. So then the cops shoot all three of them with fucking paintballs, which is like the most non-lethal thing I've ever seen. I guess they're supposed to be like tear gas paintballs or whatever.
Yeah.
They just blast Mike. They hit Dan, and Dan drops. He's like, all his papers all over the fucking place. He's fucking coughing, drooling. He's fucking dying. Mike, I don't know what Mike was doing. He had a backpack in front of his like chest, like to shield his body. Tim got shot. He didn't even react at all. He'd been shot before by tear gas. So then he looks helpless, but then Bill comes up and tells him that he needs those three men in the office immediately. So they let him in. Bill takes out his like he tells him, "Grab your top sheet. Let's go to meet you got 3 minutes tops." He meets with the boss. They have a quick conversation, and they realize how much like in common they have. Because Dan asks, the guy asks him how many work for you. He's like, "Just 3, including me." He's like, "Huh, I started with 4 myself. And, like now I have 200,000." And they kind of like hit it off. So they like, "Oh, your deal's like," he just said like, "Your deal's just slightly better than the other one," and like that's just enough for him. And they have the handshake. And like Dan, throughout this whole movie, all he wanted, like when he saw that, like he didn't believe the handshake. Like the guy's like, "You gonna shake my hand or not?" He's like, "Yes, I am." They shake hands. Done and done. He tells the group. The group's excited. They find Chuck at a restaurant, and they dance in front of her to mock her. And for whatever reason, Mike pulls his ass out and moons her. They look at that ass. And they go back to St. Louis, and Jim is in St. Louis to meet his boss. And they see Dan sees. It's funny because they're going down the escalator, right? And they see Jim coming up the escalator to go back to on his flight, right? It's like, oh, and Dan's like, "Oh, you came to see your boss, huh, Jim?" He's like, "That's right." "Oh, hey, Dan, can I get your address?" He's like, "I like to send flowers to anyone who fucks me," because they had screwed over Jim. He's like, "Oh, make sure to make it out to Tim and Mike too with the 3-way." And then Mike's like, "You were my third fuck." And then fucking Jim flips him off as he's leaving, so you can tell they're not gonna be friends anytime soon. Dan gets home, family's happy. And the next morning, after everything's settled, by the way, Tim hooks up with the maid, not the sex maid he hired, the real maid.
The real maid.
Yeah, because they had been, apparently kept in touch as he was in Berlin. So he's like, "Let's go get that wheelbarrow," and he asked her to stay in her maid uniform when she picked him up, which it doesn't really make any sense to me because she met him in Portland, Maine, so that means she had to come back to St. Louis. But it's a little you know what I mean? It's a little continuity issue, but I'll let it go because it's a good movie.
Yeah.
You know my brain can't let stuff go sometimes. Dan's the whole time he's been trying to do that homework for his daughter, like, "Who's your daddy?" And at the end, she wrote it for him anyway. Because the next morning she's like, the wife's asked the daughter, "Did you do your homework?" And Dan's like, "Oh shit, the daddy the homework," and I forgot. And she's like, the daughter's like, "Don't worry, I did it." So they all leave to go to school, and he has a quick look at what she wrote, and all it says is like, "My dad's the one that drives when everyone else is tired." I was like, "That's a good line."
Yeah, it is.
Always being the one that does it, when everyone's exhausted or they need help, he's always there, and he kind of was. And the movie ends, and I'm like, man. So that's it. That is my full review, and over my full rundown of Unfinished Business.